Christopher Nolan's upcoming The Odyssey movie has been on everybody's lips lately, mostly because of the controversy surrounding the casting choices. And whenever situations like this happen, the best thing that the actors and the filmmakers or directors can do is, let the work speak for itself. I've already made a video discussing how they could have handled this a bit better, specifically, in my opinion, by not calling it The Odyssey at all. Just like George Clooney's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou that I saw recently, it's basically like a modern retelling of Homer's epic, but it never claimed to be the original story, and everyone accepted it. The core issue that people are having is if you want to make a modern take or interpretation of a story, that is a-okay. Just don't title it the same as the source material because it isn't the original. I completely understand the desire to tell new stories, but if you're going to use the exact name and present it as The Odyssey, it should show reasonable fidelity to the source. I was genuinely upset when I realized that Invincible and The Boys did exactly the same thing. As someone who never read the comics, I thought I was getting the full source material on screen, only to discover so many fundamental changes that they're essentially different stories. Now granted, I think a lot of these changes were good when I learned of them, but some of them were just downright offensive and useless, to be honest, and almost ruined the experience for a lot of people, and was a very bad look. Like taking Amber, who used to be white in the comics, which is fine, no problem, but then they turned her into an angry, black, snobby, unbearable woman, which almost seemed like a kind of slight, if you know what I mean. Then they tried to pull back when it was too late. Maybe it was a running gag with them because Hollywood likes to replace gingers with dark-skinned people, so they decided to turn Amber into a black girl so that, Mark could replace her with a ginger. Win one for the team, I guess. Because otherwise that decision made absolutely no sense. And in changing some of the personalities, you do change some of the story. Maybe not the general story, but in my opinion, when something is brought to the big screen, it's often done for the reason so that people that don't have time to read the originals, who deal with eye strain or simply prefer visual media like my father, they can enjoy it too. So it's understandable why the audience would feel upset.
But they are flipping out.
What's generating the most controversy, however, is that this is fundamentally a Greek story with almost no Greek cast, and nobody would usually have a problem with it, except for the fact that Hollywood has recently been extremely vocal about casting people who are the very thing they're supposed to be portraying. And before that, most people agreed with these statements that stuff like voice acting, that race shouldn't matter. If you're Kenyan, you should be able to be Caribbean or play a Caribbean character, an American character. We didn't care about British people playing American characters, as long as you could do or perform the role. I don't know about you, but I thought that was the point of acting. If you could look the part and you're a good actor, it shouldn't matter if you're Japanese playing a Korean, as long as it's believable. But now apparently everybody, including voice actors, whose face you're never gonna see, have to be like the exact color of the character that they're playing, even though you have characters that are red and blue and whatever, but you gotta have the close next best, which is kind of ridiculous. But if Hollywood is the one that has set that standard without anybody asking, then yeah, it's a bit hypocritical of them to do the complete opposite with the cast for The Odyssey.
And from South Africa, who was okay with apartheid, is still railing against Lupita Nyong'o playing the fabled most beautiful woman in the world.
So then we hear the take from The View, because we know how valuable that is. It's like if you put all these Karens that are old into one room and they just feed off each other, even though they're all fake to each other and they have the most bitter perspectives. That's what The View is, which is ironic given the title of the show being The View, because it's not much of one. And why would you call it The View? Because every single one of them here are kind of blind in how close-minded they tend to be.
None of these choices are actually, we don't know who's been cast. It's not finalized, but they are flipping out.
So I'm going to give a little grace here because this video that I'm talking about is about 2 weeks ago that they put out, but Lupita has been confirmed as Helen of Troy in the Nolan film, and nobody knows if Elliot Page is definitely going to be cast. I would definitely kind of try to steer clear of that, to be honest, if I were a director. Not so the person doesn't have, the ability to act anymore, but that's not the role, and unless you're gonna put Elliot as a wraith or something, or some kind of ghost character. But yeah, the backlash about that stems from credible leaks and Nolan's history of casting known collaborators, because he's worked with Elliot Page before, back when Elliot Page was Ellen Page. But dismissing everyone's concerns as just rumors ignores the confirmed choices, which were the reasons for why the debate sparked in the first place. Critics aren't freaking out over nothing. Specific high-profile casting decisions for iconic roles that are tied to Greek cultural heritage are happening, which is why they're freaking out about those freaking casting choices.
Okay, so before y'all flip out, my question is, why is this upsetting? Why don't you just not go to the movie?
That's a good question. All the stuff that flips you out that you talk about, why is that upsetting to you? Why don't you just not talk about it? If they were to go, and even though Wakanda's not a real place, if they were to try and race swap, tell over the story of Black Panther and made every single cast person in there non-African or white or whatever, you could also choose not to go see that movie. But my guess is you would have a front row ticket seat to the one flipping out the loudest about that. Why wouldn't you just go to the movie? Interesting. When it's about stuff that has to do with your heritage or culture, it's completely fine for you to flip out, right? Like you were just doing earlier on in the video about Elon Musk and apartheid in Africa or something like that, that clearly is upsetting to you, which understandably it's a real issue, but there are also a lot of issues that are non-issues that you flipped out about in the past. And the other thing is, it's kind of an irony here, because you're flipping out about people flipping out about a movie that you don't believe they should flip out about, but you're flipping out about them flipping out about a fictional movie, as you would put it. Why are you flipping out about people flipping out?
Why is this upsetting? Why don't you just not go to the movie?
Again, the reason that your show even exists is so you can criticize things and talk about them. This is always a nauseating, weak deflection that people like this person have. People have every right to criticize multi-million-dollar Hollywood productions adapting foundational Western cultural stories, especially when those very stories or the movies themselves are funded by studios that are aimed at broad audiences that expect our money, right? If we're going to be buying the product and they expect us to buy the product, yeah, we could just not see the movie, but they put a trailer out there, so we're supposed to just sit and never say anything. Are you one of those spokespeople for censorship? The very reason you even have your show is because you have the freedom to criticize people and things that you don't like, but yet you don't want us to criticize stuff about what we don't like or what we find unsettling. Very hypocritical and entitled of you. Criticism of casting or writing or a director's choices has been a standard discourse for any film, telling audiences, just don't go watch it, just close your eyes, while the studios are pushing these projects with massive marketing and then expecting no pushback on cultural representation is very inconsistent with what you and the rest of the View members stand for. These elites can talk about stuff that they want. But I bet you, if it was someone who completely agreed with 100% everything that they agreed with outside of this, they would give them a lot more grace. It's giving shut up and just consume. When we put out stuff, don't criticize and say anything about it, just consume. And that's the very thing that serves as a catalyst to killing art.
I think, racism rears its ugly head often on, and more often now than ever, I think, in our country. But if you are a student of history, you know that scholars have debated for decades the extent to which Greek mythology and civilization were influenced by ancient Egypt and North Africa. It is very clear that Andromeda is just...
I like how the racism argument always pops up when it happens to be a light-skinned culture that is being exploited. But if the reverse was happening with a minorities culture, or in America, it's a minority, but if that was happening in another person's culture, there would be people picketing. I mean, it is completely fine for everyone to be understandably upset if they try to whitewash or do something with another culture. But when a culture is already white, and then you decide, I'm just going to change out everything and take out everything about Greek culture out of this and take that culture and make it my own and then call it the very thing that is like almost plagiarizing it a bit. It's completely fine to do that. And when people of that heritage or people call out about it, it is all of a sudden racist.
Ethiopian princess. We have Othello, the Moor. The Greeks, this idea was also explored in a book called Black Athena. I think people should read it, which argues that classical Greek culture is heavily indebted to Afro-Asiatic and Near Eastern roots. I actually taught Greek mythology to 8th graders.
Oh, wow. Would you like a cookie? Just because you did that doesn't mean you're right on the subject. So she's probably using sites or sources like this in PubMed with the HLA genes in Macedonians and the sub-Saharan origin of the Greeks. And you can go check it out. So this 2001 scientific paper looked at certain immune system genes called HLA genes in people from modern North Macedonia and compared them to the modern Greeks and other groups of people. And the researchers claimed that modern Greeks have some genetic links to sub-Saharan African people like Ethiopian people, based on a few shared gene variants. They suggested that this connection might come from ancient times, possibly from people moving from Egypt or Ethiopia a long time ago. And they used charts and calculations to argue that Greeks are genetically similar to some African groups than to other nearby Mediterranean people. Number one, the paper has been heavily criticized by other scientists for using weak methods and drawing big conclusions from the limited data that they gave. Lastly, that does not mean that Helen of Troy did not look a certain way. But if we're going off of what has been the long-standing portrayal of this person, who I personally think looks chopped, but whatever, beauty was different back then, I guess, or maybe it was the painter's rendition of it. She was a redheaded ginger or fair person, like skinned or hair. Again, if she's freaking ginger, which I see most of the renditions being, and they replaced her with a black woman again. Oh, Lord. It's the actor's fault at this point because they keep taking these roles and doing it to themselves. There's only so much you can do to help them out, but at some point you understand what it is you're doing. Now, I love her as an actress. I think she is a beautiful woman. I really do. One of the things I loved about her is in The Woman King, she refused the role to play in The Woman King because they were falsifying history.
As much as we highlight their strengths, we also have to acknowledge their crimes. That's why you have things like Black Panther. I think it's also really important to be aware of the truth, because you are better equipped to face the future, you know, when you can really consider and take into account your past, you know.
Of course, her conscience was like, no, I cannot play in a movie that makes these people, these sect of African people from this country, look like they're the good guys. Like, I just can't do that. So she knows actors have the ability to turn down roles out of principle. Now, I get it. If you're hurting for money, then yes, yeah, I get it. But then shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, because you know you're going to draw the ire of people. So just don't say anything. Just get your money and keep it moving. Because before this, the ire wasn't against her. People still loved her. They were upset at the casting decision and what Hollywood was doing, trying to rip people apart by doing stuff like this. But her keeping her mouth shut was doing fine. She was doing fine until she decided to say something. And I don't think what she said was necessarily bad. You know, they're calling her a hypocrite and stuff. And yeah, I think she is. But I could tell she doesn't want to upset the audience. At the same time, you took this role.
So people that are saying that Helen of Troy could not possibly be played by a black woman don't know history.
Right. Just like, you know, Anne Boleyn was black, right? I'm sure you taught a class on that too. So this woman used ideas like the paper I just showed and the book that she named Black Athena to argue that ancient Greeks had strong black African roots. So it's fine for a black actress like Lupita to play Helen of Troy, but this is incredibly misleading, like I said, because modern genetic studies using ancient DNA from actual Bronze Age Greek skeletons, which like time of the Trojan War and Homer stories, show that ancient Greeks were a mix of early European farmers and other groups from Balkans and Anatolia, which is the modern Turkey area. And based on that DNA, they had no significant sub-Saharan African ancestry. They look like typical Mediterranean Europeans. Olive or fair skin, mostly dark hair with some lighter features mixed in. Homer, the very poet who created the story of Helen, described her as white-armed, meaning fair or pale skin, and golden-haired, which is blonde or light brown hair. Ancient Greek paintings and sculptures also show Helen and other Greek heroines with light skin and European features. These descriptions reflect how the ancient Greeks saw their own ideal of beauty and their own people. Even if there was some very minor mixing in later periods, which most experts said that there wasn't any on any big level, it doesn't change the fact that Helen was written as a Spartan Greek woman in a Greek story. Using one old disputed study to justify race swapping a core character that's already visually established from Greek mythology is in fact ignoring actual history, like that old woman is saying that everybody else is doing because she taught it to 8th graders one time. And again, if we try to use the same argument for a Tanzanian or Kenyan or Nigerian story, and it's about mythology where there's already established paintings of someone who looked like someone from the ancient environment of that time, and you're like, well, this is the face that launched 1,000 ships, and they decided, you know what? A Kenyan woman is not good enough. Let's race swap her to be Chinese. Yes, it's a Chinese person that did that. Understandably, the Nigerians or whoever would be very upset with that.
Elon Musk has multiple companies valued at over $1 trillion. How do you even have the time to worry about this?
I'm sure each of you are also very rich. Why do you have the time to worry about this? It's the same argument that can be made for you. How much are y'all worth? As a matter of fact, with Elon Musk being however the hell how rich he is, I would expect he had a little bit more time. Maybe not. Maybe he's trying to send us into outer space because he's trying to actually do something with humanity and move us forward in that direction. Love or hate the man. Understand, you don't gotta like him. He does have an ego. I get it. I'm not saying he's a perfect person. I'm not even saying he's a likable person. But pot calling kettle black much? I like how rich people are so snobby that they will try to distract everyone from how elitist and entitled and snobby they are by saying, look at this richer person than me. They're the real problem. It's like the freaking millionaires. When they become millionaires, all of a sudden the problem is billionaires, not millionaires anymore, because no one should have $1 billion, but you're a millionaire. Shut up.
Just wants the awards. He's got plenty of awards. I don't think he needs to,
oh, there's always room for more, because why not? There's no other reason he would be doing that. So go ahead, play defense for him, but he's following everything to the T of what is required to win such an award. Otherwise, he would not do it, I assure you. He wants to leave a legacy, and he can get an award for this specific movie, so let's not play pretend here, unless you really are that daft that you don't get that.
We're talking about Helen of Troy being the most beautiful woman of the world. Can you flip up that woman picture again? Of Helen of... No, that's
beautiful.
Because
she means the other one.
The most beautiful woman in the world. That was
the blonde lady.
Fictitious also. Yeah, but
yes, they're asking. She's asking for it again.
Okay, yeah. That just arguably, and beauty is subjective. I'd like you to prove to me that's the finest there ever was. She can even hold a candle. Lupita Nyong'o.
Lupita's not going to let you suck on her flaps. I'm sorry. Everyone knows that Lupita is breathtaking. We know that. But let's not also pretend that there are other black women. I'm sorry. No shade to Lupita, because she's gorgeous. But there are so many other black women out there that are way more gorgeous than Lupita. Even if I was going to choose a black woman who is the face of beauty, she would not be my first pick. She would not even be on the first 10 pages for me. I've seen girls on Instagram, black girls on Instagram, that Lupita and most of these Hollywood people, including every single person sitting here, cannot hold a candle to these Instagram girls. Aaliyah is one of those people.
We are going to be playing some Pokemon Pokopia.
This cosplayer is just one of the many people on Twitch or on Instagram that... I mean, holding her up next to Lupita, I'm sorry, Lupita, love you, but no. You know what I mean? I could understand putting her in. She's beautiful enough that I would say, yeah, she's not Greek, but are we gonna complain looking at her? You know what I mean? Like, it's still on principle. But I think people would be a little bit more forgiving if they all had this common consensus. Beauty's subjective, but I think we can mostly agree that this woman is way better looking than Lupita, and way better looking than most of us average people. If you really wanted to choose someone who was dark-skinned for any role or reason, there are a million other women that you could choose from it would be believable if you said that they were the face that launched 1,000 ships or what have you. But as pretty as she is, no, she's more average pretty, but she ain't launched 1,000 ships face pretty. And I could just tell that women like this are so fake, you would be surprised. I don't know her personally, I don't know her name, but I wonder what would happen if she had a boy that came home with a girlfriend that looked like Lupita. I wonder what her reaction would be, because it's the people who are like, oh no, how could they say this? It's not beautiful. But I bet you if their little blonde boys came home with a black girlfriend, oh my God, are you sure? Oh my God, I'm gonna talk to your father. Like, they'd be the biggest freaking racist people. I'm not saying that she is, because I don't know her, but I've seen people like this in New York. I've seen it. They will bend over backwards to try and make themselves not look racist until it's a family member marrying outside of their color of their skin, and see how the racism just bleeds out. It's so funny how that happens. Or if you tell them, oh, you look like Lupita, and then they're like, excuse me? Or like the people who are trying to be allies for trans people or fat acceptance movement. And if you tell someone they look like Lizzo before she lost weight, they would get so offended. It's so funny to watch it happen.
The argument I want to hear. She wasn't real.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, she looks like Elvis.
I agree. She looks freaking wrecked, but I don't know. Those two paintings look different. The one on the right looks like she weighs 500, 300 pounds. The one on the left looks like the person who was painting her had a little bit more skill and less cocaine that day. Obviously, we've seen her portrayed before in media, so let's not be disingenuous. And okay, if you're gonna make this an argument that this woman looks fat and ugly or something, you could have still found a ginger woman or someone who matched the skin and hair description and chosen someone more beautiful. Now, these pictures that I'm showing you are AI modified, but there are people who actually look like this. I've seen people who look like this. I had friends that look like this. Granted, even with makeup, you could have chosen someone who looks like this. I think she's the best looking out of all of them. It's not impossible. Go to Cali. Not everywhere. You know what I mean? But there are places. They used to have audition calls where people were like, oh, if you look like this, we need people who look like this. And it's like a Cinderella audition where people from all over for a chance come and they give them acting classes. They look for the look first because they know the look is going to draw in people. And then they teach them how to act. And it helps if you have that natural ability. But there are a lot of people who, yes, I know what people say about Zendaya. I personally think she's gorgeous, but is she the best actor? No, we know that she was chosen for her looks. We know, right? It's not a new concept. If you look at older movies, that's what's been happening for a long time.
Could they have not pulled a better picture to make his point than that woman?
She's not bad looking, she's just mad.
No,
She's not bad looking?
No, you know what it is?
Bet you if she was black and looked the same way, this woman would not be saying a word. She'd be saying how beautiful that woman looks. Swap the color and just make it dark skin and you'd see how fast this freaking woman changes her mind. That's how fake these people are. I understand them saying, oh, it's fictional. Yes, myths though aren't pure fantasy like Lord of the Rings. They're rooted in a specific culture's oral history. Like, you know, the story's been handed down for generations. It's tied to their religion, their identity, their self-image. And Homer's audience understood these as their ancestors and heroes. Fictitious also doesn't mean that anything goes. Adaptations will still invoke the source's world. You're using the actual source, but then you change the core traits of the characters, their race, their sex, or the most, the beautiful woman in the world, Helen, you change exactly how she was meant to be portrayed or how she long-standing was portrayed. Like if you did that to any other culture's heroes or mythical fictional heroes, it would be an issue. Let you turn that same argument around to any other culture and say, well, it's fake. Why do you care if we make it white? Do you understand how racist that sounds? How elitist that sounds? It's basically the same thing. but because it's a pale-skinned culture, all of a sudden it's okay to be racist. Like, I don't really understand that. And I understand the Greeks were being mad because the Greeks had a strong sense of their mythology. Modern Greeks have voiced frustration over lacking representation in a film shot partly in Greece using their cultural property. Like, how are you gonna get mad at the very people whose stories and mythology are using from their culture? You weird-ass, elitist, snobby-ass, superior, fake people.
Understand why you feel the need when there's so much going on in the world.
This is always the argument that people tend to make. There's so much going on in the world. Why are you talking about this? Bitch, why are you talking about it? You're rich and you have nothing to do. You could be taking your money right now and going down to freaking South Philly and feeding people and the homeless. There's so many homeless people out there, but you got us poor people or middle class people out there using our money to feed the homeless people that you could be out there feeding instead of all your damn show. But you're asking us why we're worried about this? If you're gonna ask why we're criticizing it, you need to ask your no eyebrow haven't asked why you're doing the same thing. Because let's be so for real. Is it just that only your voice matters because you're rich? There's so much you could be doing with your time. You hate Elon so much, why don't you guys all band together and make your own company to help get us into space? So if something freaking hits the Earth, we have another avenue of escape for our race to go off and still exist, should we want that. Why don't you take your money and invest into longer life for humans to be healthier, curing diabetes and all those other things? Why don't you do that with your money? Why are you sitting up here criticizing what us poor folks are doing, criticizing a movie that people want, like people like you want us to spend our money on? I mean, literally, this is what I cannot stand. These people are so freaking fake. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to you? I'm done.
This how I fly. This how I fly. Long burn, deep thrust. Watch the weak ones cry. This how I fly. Slow then I climb. Make the whole sky mine. This how I fly. Hey. This how I fly. Hey. I ride hard and fast and I last through the night. This how I fly. Real gods last till the spaceship blast.